Great good morning, everyone. It is a beautiful Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he. Broadcasting today from the United States of America. I could prove it. We're doing things to help Americans. It's also the place where the brave, like the veterans we honor today, thanks to John Basiliga and his outstanding companies, like Richard Capwell, Dixon City, Victor Karpowicz, Freeland, William Donovan, Scranton, Joseph Schmiel, Bear Creek, Frank Perfinsky, West Wyoming, and Robert Huntington, Danville, have made us and kept us free. The United States of America, founded with a certain knowledge and understanding by our incredible, irreplaceable founding fathers, that government cannot be, shall not be, will not be our parent, our guide, our salvation, our direction. Not any of these things, but is nothing more than a necessary evil we require to organize and protect society. The United States of America, the country where, for the first time in human history, freedom was declared to be an unalienable right granted to each individual by God. It was not something that could be parceled out to groups. It was not something that could be controlled by government or government officials. Our great American Constitution ensures and codifies freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, economic freedom, and freedom of the press. Yeah, they use it to lie. So what? We're big boys. We're big girls. We can handle it. We know better. Now, armed with these freedoms, and only because they had them, a ragtag bunch of immigrants, rejects, and their progeny from around the world created the richest, most powerful, most culturally diverse and accepting nation ever to grace our planet Earth. America, the only place specifically invented and designed so that every American can live their life in the manner they choose, unlimited by their background, upbringing, race, color, or creed, unhindered by the government or those who would use government to control others for their own comfort, benefit, or power. A lot of that going around. And so we gavel together this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising a sanctuary of sanity in a world that has gone insane. And we promise that the Bob Cordaro Show will always be convincingly conservative, lovingly logical, proudly and passionately patriotic, and reliably right. Yeah, a little honey accident here in the morning, but we're overcoming it. We're overcoming it. Every day is amazing, is it not? It truly is. I looked at, we're going to have a few different guests on today, but every day, so much happens. And I normally have a 5 to follow, but it's about a 10 to follow. And I'll go through it quickly. You had the Biden brain collapse. That story still continues. The undiagnosed cancer. The Her tapes. The Tapper book. Bill Clinton responding, defending him as though he was normal. Well, Bill. Oh, Lord. Yeah, because if somebody can say hello back to you, that means they're capable of being president of the United States. And then, produced by Fox News, it might have been Peter Doocy, proof that the auto pen was used on all of the last-minute pardons, the preemptive pardons, except for Hunter Biden's pardon, which, as we know, came earlier in December. Fascinating. And it's just, I mean, it's provable. These were auto pen. Well, let's see if there was more behind that. The Ukraine-Russia war. Another stealth drone attack. Now, what's interesting to me and scary, you have an idiot out in Arizona, this Democrat governor, who vetoed legislation that the Chinese could not own land in Arizona. They couldn't accumulate land. Well, there's a lot of reasons they're doing it, but if you know what happened in Russia, Ukraine assembled, I don't know how they did it. It's ingenious. They brought these trucks into Russia somehow. And inside these trucks were these drones, these attack drones. And at some point, apparently remotely, these trucks or trailers opened up, the drones came out and did significant damage. They destroyed a second bridge. Now, why does that relate back to the Chinese owning property? Because they do the exact same thing here with untold damage occurring. From their, and the amazing thing is, it'd be from property that they own. Now, how stupid could one person be? That's another Democrat. What was behind that? Are the Chinese paying her money? What is it? Especially after these drone attacks so successfully executed by Ukraine. And remember, Russia's landmass is bigger than the United States. So you let the Chinese and maybe Bill Gates own all this land. Well, they've got launching pads for all kinds of attacks. And remember, some of the land is near military bases, ours, in the continental United States. Unbelievable. The reverberation of those insane anti-Jewish attacks in Colorado, reverberating. Fortunately, it's the old thing, sins of the father. Well, they're going to deport all of them. Now, let's see what usual idiot suspects oppose kicking this Egyptian nightmares family out of the country. Get it done. I didn't get a chance to talk about the McCormick Fetterman appearance on Fox Nation. Look at Fetterman talks a reasonable game. I get, and I've got to thank my man Frank Mack. He sends me the stuff that Fetterman sends out to raise money. Oh, it's so different from the rhetoric and the normalcy he conveys every day to the larger America. Oh, they're destroying, they're gonna kill thousands of people. The whole Democrat rhetoric package Fetterman subscribed to. I've got to tell you, and look at Dave McCormick, love him, he's our guy. But this bipartisan crusade that he's on, the Democrats are insane. You can't be bipartisan with them. Cannot. Isn't that sad? But it's terribly true. Nate Silver, the big pollster, predictor, whatever you want to call him, he basically said that Democrat voters have mental problems. Isn't that fascinating? Did we know the people devoted to Democrat policies are insane? We know that. Now he's gone further, that Democrat voters share that insanity. Well, it's almost a given, but now here's a Democrat pointing it out. Now, I've seen it here, there, and everywhere, but mostly from Sean Hannity. We'll see if it bears out. The Atlanta Fed predicting astonishing growth and continued low and maybe even lower unemployment rates. Big deal. Oh, and then yesterday, And I don't like to watch these things, but it's my job. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary for Donald Trump. Man, I thought Jen Psaki was good. And she had a tough job lying. And then I thought that, what was her name? Corinne Jean-Pierre. I thought she got better. She stunk in the beginning. But wow. And by the way, I thought that the Sarah Huckabee Sanders was good. Caroline Leavitt, it's a clinic every time she has a press briefing. She's unbelievable. And originally I was like, oh, she answers too quickly. She answers too smugly. And after watching her, I'm like, wow. That's the level of quality that Trump picked the second time around. Amazing. Absolutely great. She is unreal. Anyway, so that's the many stories to follow. And then anything else you want to talk about, call or text 570-883-0098. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. We'll be back. This date, 1956, Elvis. He was on the Milton Berle Show and was presented with a Triple Crown Award to commemorate Heartbreak Hotel being number one on pop, R&B, and the country charts. Big deal. And before that, 1919, the Congress approved the 19th Amendment, guaranteeing citizens the right to vote regardless of their gender. Back then, it didn't say sexual preference. And they sent it to the states for ratification, and you heard all of that. A good thing, quite obviously. Tom from Dallas checks in. He says, John Fetterman's like the girlfriend that's telling you all the right things, but then she's sleeping with the neighbor. Well, it could be the boyfriend, too, Tom. John Fetterman can talk all the talk he wants, but look at his voting record. Yes. I'm not fooled by Fetterman. I'm really not fooled. And that doesn't mean I don't like him. He's a character. You'd love to hang around. I don't want him for my senator. Somebody says, good morning, Bob. I'm not a Biden supporter, but forget about Biden. No, not till the sign's down. On our highway and on a street in Scranton. Joe from Trips Park says, in case anyone's wondering how much land we own in China close to their military bases, the answer is 0, because they are not as stupid. By the way, let's continue. It says, good morning, Bob. I'm not a Biden supporter, but forget about Biden. Move on. There's so many good subjects to talk about. You're like a broken record, LOL. Listen, they're going to try to pretend. Here's what you're missing. The deviousness of the left. They're going to try to pretend Biden was the problem, not their policies. And we're not going to let that escape. We can't. Because people say, well, it was just that it was Biden. It wasn't the policies that were awful. It wasn't the left-wing lunacy that was the problem. It was Biden was the problem. No. And then Biden, on top of all that, their lies and cover-up regarding his mental condition and his mental state. These things cannot be forgotten. And by the way, don't think that tiny slice of voters who make the decisions, in the election, that small sliver of the electorate, don't think that they're not paying attention closely. There's a maxim in media. I was taught this a long time ago when I first got in the radio business, and it applies to advertising, politics, whatever. As soon as you, meaning the people who are aware, are getting nauseous hearing something, the people you need to reach are just starting to hear it. Not react to it, just starting to hear it. Remember that. You sound just like miserable Bob Bolus, Mr. Trentley from Scranton. That's funny. Well, look at Bob's consistent. Bob Bolus is consistent and fearless in what he says. So in that regard, I'll take the compliment. We'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We'll be back. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you by our friend John Basiliga and his incredible suite of companies. That includes Basiliga Hospitality. That includes Serenity Care, the gold standard in senior care in Northeast Pennsylvania. Eastern Roofing Systems, huge commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential roofing company. And J. Bass Realty, apartments and commercial space beyond parallel. Richard Capwell, Dixon City. He was 76 when we lost him April 11th. Born in Scranton, he served this country with honor and dedication in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. He worked for over 30 years as a splicing technician for Verizon. Loving father, grandfather, known for his strong work ethic, kind heart. Member of the American Legion post in Dixon City. He was a commander and held other offices. Also a member of the VFW post. He was co-commander of the Dixon City Veterans Honor Guard for 16 years. Surviving his son, daughter, 6 grandchildren, 1 great-grandson. Preceded in death by his brother Jack. Richard Capwell. Victor Karpowicz. He was just 65 when he passed April 14th. He was from Freeland, battling cancer. Born in Hazleton, Freeland High School and Hazleton Votech, computer science graduate. Bachelor of Science degree from Troy State in Montgomery, Alabama. He pursued a master's degree in St. Joseph in Philadelphia as well. Quiet guy. He served us in the U.S. Air Force as a staff sergeant. After military service, he became a computer program for various large tech companies, including Sperry, if you remember that name. I do. Surviving brother and many, many other family members, Victor Karpowicz. Our veterans this hour brought to you by John Basiliga and his great companies. Oh, that means the weather. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Snedeker. Today, sunny and humid, 88 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 64. Thursday, clouds and sun, humid with showers and thunderstorms late in the day, 88. Friday, cooler with a mix of clouds and sun, a chance of showers and thunderstorms, high near 80. I don't know that he didn't extend into the weekend. I'm starting to get curious what we're headed for. By the way, my man Gary Duncan sent in a 4-year effort underway. It hasn't come to a conclusion yet. Now, the House passed by a vote of 150 to 52 to make the Hershey's Kiss the state candy. I know. It's just one of those things. Who cares? I mean, I think the Hershey's people care. I think other people who make candy in this state, and we've got some great candy makers here in Northeast Pennsylvania, they might care. But anyway, just much ado about very little, obviously. So today, we're going to have Rick Bigelow, Battle of Midway. Now, this is going to be a great week history-wise, because on Friday we'll have him back for D-Day. Man, it needs to be talked about. It needs to be remembered. the courage our people, our American heroes had hitting that beach. So, Battle of Midway, the turning point of the war in the Pacific. And the serendipity, the good fortune, the luck that contributed to us turning around after the devastation of Pearl Harbor, turning around the war with Japan. And I'm going to tell you again, the parallels with the Empire of Japan and the Communist Chinese are frightening. There's not a... I don't even have, and I could be, I'm not saying I'm 100% right. There's not a doubt in my mind that if we resist, we're going to be fighting the Red Chinese at some point in the near future. Next 10 years, maybe soon, maybe later in that time frame. They are our enemies. They are also imploding demographically because of their one-child policy and for other reasons, but that's the primary reason. Chinese mothers and families haven't been having kids for a long time. Remember what would happen? If you had a second child, the child would be killed and you'd be punished. And now they can't turn it around. So it's an exceptionally aging population. Number two, the insertion of communist ideology trumping business needs, and their economy's it's in a shambles. And third, it really maybe it'd be 2A, is that without freedom, you can't make good choices. It is a communist dictatorship. That does not match up in terms of a good economy. Just you can't have both. And it is now catching up to them as they've taken freedom after freedom after freedom away from incredible entrepreneurial class that China happens to have. But they're being robbed of that by Xi Jinping, who's an evil man. He's awful. He's an evil, evil human. Somebody says, Bob Gertrude Hawk peanut butter smidgens better than Hershey Kiss. See? We got great candy makers here in Northeast PA. We really do. All right, but I'm going to have to... Now I want a smidgen. We're going to take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. The eponymous program will roll on after we hear from our great sponsors. Yeah, the Beach Boys, Murph tells us, released their hit Surfin' Safari. This date, 1962. By the way, we're having, my son texted me this morning. He said, hey, are you playing Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA? I guess it was released or whatever today. And Murph wasn't going to play it because we really think Bruce Springsteen is an idiot. He is an idiot. He's also dumb. He's really stupid. I heard his speech in a foreign country, by the way, which was actually restricting free speech. Like, he's just stupid. We still like his music. So we're going to play it last. You got that right, Bulldog? We'll play Born in the USA last, but I'm going to talk over it. I'm disrespectful to and don't respect Bruce Springsteen, period. But look at it's music history. We can't like all our history. Let's go to Jim from Harding on Caroline Levitt. How are you, my man?
Hey, how's it going? No, I want to mention two things. Her and the Gulf of America. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's saying, what right does President Trump to have that named the, Gulf of America? I said, it's common sense. You got North America, South America, and Central America. Why wouldn't you call it that?
Yep.
But he didn't have an answer. But to make this quick, Caroline Levitt, there was only one thing I hate about that woman. You know what it is?
What?
Because of her, I can't tell any more blonde jokes.
That is a loss.
Yeah.
I was waiting for your punchline, Jim, and it was worth it.
Hey, you have a good day.
Thank you, my man. Yeah, she's a very beautiful woman, and man, she is awesome. Awesome. Bloomberg Money Minute. Then we'll be back. That's the Searchers. Murph going deep as usual. June 4th, 1963, they debuted on the United Kingdom charts with their hit Sweet for My Sweet. And, of course, Battle of Midway, which we're going to be talking about after 10 o'clock with our man Rick Bigelow. Cutie says that my dog Chauncey, who's listening to the program, is mad at me because Cutie's the only beautiful woman. Oh, stop it. Anyway, somebody said that Hershey has moved the production, and I don't know if it's specifically of Hershey's Kisses, out of Pennsylvania. So how could it be the candy of Pennsylvania, the state candy? And it is true. Hershey Company has moved some of its manufacturing to Mexico. They had an Oakdale, California plant. And it was relocated to Monterrey, Mexico as part, in reaction to the North American Free Trade Agreement. They've invested in that plant and added production lines. I'm not sure. So I don't know if it's the Kisses or I'll continue researching this and looking it up. But yeah, I mean that's a big deal. If they're not making the Kissies in Hershey, they cannot be the candy of Pennsylvania. And we've got to spread that word. You're right, Slick. I'm with you, man. Thank you. Somebody said, Bob, tell Senator McCormick a lot of bipartisanship. All you have to do is get rid of the entire lunatic Democrat Party. That's a good place to begin. How can there be bipartisanship when doing a gender operation on a child is supported? Entire Democrat Party leadership has got to be replaced. There's not even a doubt about that. They're a disgrace. Tom from Dallas says China owns 227,336 acres of land in the U.S., just in terms of agricultural land. Yeah, you could launch a lot of drones from there, couldn't you? Yeah. That's the typical Democrat elected official in Arizona. And she's a dumb person. I watched her debate Carrie Lake. I was like, what? You got to be kidding me. This person's running for governor of a major state? Somebody says, I never liked Bruce Springsteen. They call him Bruce String Bean. Please don't play his music. He cannot sing at all. The only thing he has going for him, he's surrounded by talented musicians. It's history. Remember, it's music history. It's to remind you of where you were, what you were doing, and all of that when a particular song either came out or was number one. It's a reflection. That doesn't mean we like the artist or love the artist. Somebody pushing smidgens for Pennsylvania candy. And that Hershey is Mexican made. I don't know if those particular ones. Somebody else, Bob, Hershey makes many candies. There's a company in Carbondale. The package is Hershey bars. So they didn't move all their stuff out of Pennsylvania. And they have the big factory in Hershey, obviously. So I don't know. Again, smidgens. Why not smidgens? Made here in Northeast PA. I'm in with that. I'm down with it. By the way, we haven't talked about the Diddy trial, except to say that Diddy, like all bullies, is deep down a pussy. Because I was in the Brooklyn prison he's been crying about, 3 or 4 times. I never cried, just so you know. All right, it is time for the news with Brian Hughes. We're going to do that. And we're going to come back. We're going to have Rick Bigelow. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Talking about the critical battle of Midway and he's just going to fill out the history for us. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. We'll be back after this. Great good morning, everyone. It is 10:07 a.m. here in the great Northeast this beautiful Wednesday, June 4th, 2025, the birthday of my youngest, Robert Jr. This is the Bob Cordaro Show, and I am he. And it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values. And with the help of our friend John Basiliga and his great companies, we will honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we lost this year, but celebrate this day. Victor Karpowicz, Freeland, Richard Capwell, Dixon City, William Donovan, Scranton, Joseph Schmiel, Bear Creek, Frank Perfinsky, West Wyoming, and Robert Huntington, Danville. So with history, our great founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense after that brief news adjournment, promising you a sanctuary of sanity for the balance of the morning. And one of our deal is, first of all, we got to laugh at some point during the program. This is what I measure a successful show as. Second, we have to learn. That's why we have great guys like Rick Bigelow and then like John Perillo. And many of our other guests as well. We've got to become outraged. Like, just for example, somebody texted in Hakeem Jeffries, the idiot minority leader in the House. I mean, he's a complete fool. He says he wants to unmask ICE agents. He wants their identities known. But yet he will allow all protesters to remain masked. What is it with these Democrats that they'll fight for illegal immigrants and criminals, yet forget about law-abiding citizens? So frustrating, says our great listener. They have to be masked. We're taking gang leaders. Their families will be at risk. You stupid idiot. Trevor from Kaiser Valley says, Dirty Kid Rock sucks. I love him. Bruce is 100% American. Yeah, that doesn't mean he's not stupid. He's a dumb person. I've heard him talk about politics too often to have any respect for his intellect. Great music, great performer, but dumb. It's at the point where that with that latest speech overseas, I won't even go see him now. I got to see him. I told you this a couple of times. I got to see him perform one song at a Paul McCartney concert, which McCartney assiduously maintains as apolitical. And so now I'm done. I'm done with Bruce. I'm not going to see him. Not interested. Not after what he said overseas. It was not only disrespectful to the country and Americans writ large. It was so erroneous and so stupid. Speaking in Manchester, England, where they're actually arresting people for their thoughts. So he's a Bob, I'm a longtime Bon Jovi fan. I don't agree with John Bon Jovi. Yeah, not his political views, but I do enjoy the music, and I respect his philanthropic efforts, says Mike. No problem. And by the way, I'm not the arbiter of who you like or don't like. I'm just telling you what I think. And he's turned me off to him, Springsteen, to such a point that I'm not interested. Now, John Bon Jovi, I only like his music, so I don't want to deal with him. You know, okay, he's all right, and to me. So it's of no effort. Like when Murph will put a John Bon Jovi song on, not interested. Somebody says Bono was on Rogan, another idiot. He really shocked me. See, he'd stayed bipartisan, Bono, over many years, and he'd stay non-political. Now hearing him on Rogan, and Rogan had to put him in his place. I mean, you just say, man, these guys are stupid. They're dumb. Well, in any event, more importantly, it's time for our man, Rick Bigelow. And you know that from his theme song, The Longest Day. And here he is because it's Midway that we're talking about today. Rick Bigelow, welcome back to the Bob Cordaro Show. How are you, my man?
Doing fine, Bob. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm fascinated with this lesson that we try to deliver pretty much every year. What a critical battle, and what a turning point for the war in the Pacific in World War II.
Yeah, absolutely was. And, of course, this is only 6 months after Pearl Harbor. And in those 6 months, Japan was kind of having their way with everything. They had taken Hong Kong and Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, Malaysia, the Philippines, Tarawa, Guam, etc., and they basically pushed the British Navy, which at that point in time was the largest navy in the world and the most powerful, had pushed them all the way back to East Africa. So since the Dutch were out of the war in the Pacific and the British were out of the war in the Pacific, it was pretty much going to be us against the Japanese. So, the Japanese attack at the Battle of the Coral Sea was a little bit of a hiccup for them. It was a tactical victory for the Japanese, but two of the carriers that were going to be involved in the 6-carrier task force at Midway, one of them was damaged and had to go back to Japan for repairs, and the other one had its air wing was decimated, so they had to go back to Japan and have their air crews, their air wing reconstituted. So there were supposed to be 6 carriers at the attack at Midway, and instead there were only 4 Japanese carriers. So that was a significant reduction. Plus, the Japanese thought we only had 2 carriers and maybe as little as 1 carrier. One of the things I'll say at this point in time, our intelligence was a lot better than theirs. Not only their strategic intelligence, but the tactical intelligence. They thought the Yorktown had sunk at the Battle of Coral Sea, but actually the Yorktown made it back to Hawaii, and in what can only be called a miraculous set of work, was repaired in about 3 days and sent out with the Enterprise and the Hornet to wait north and east of Midway to see what was going to happen. And I think, once again, talking about the intelligence, and we kind of mentioned that when we talked about the Coral Sea battle, Rochefort, who headed up the Station Hypo at Pearl Harbor, which was the intelligence unit, he basically accurately predicted that the Japanese were going to attack and take Port Moresby, and that's why Nimitz rolled the dice and sent the carrier task force into the Coral Sea. So since he had correctly predicted what was going to happen
and
as you
pointed out, in the face of stark opposition and difference of opinion with the Pentagon.
That's exactly right.
Actually, it wasn't the Pentagon back then, but okay.
Yeah, so the Navy Department in Washington, D.C., and of course they were looking at the naval situation worldwide, and they thought the main Japanese attack was going to come into the Aleutians or maybe even into Australia, but Rochefort was very convinced that it was going to be at Midway, and of course they had that very famous fake message about the condenser at Midway being out of commission, and the Japanese reported it, and we had decoded enough of the Japanese code to know that Midway was going to be the major attack. So in early June,
Rick,
force.
Just an aside, but a very important one. I don't think It's almost impossible to comprehend the size of the Pacific Ocean and the how far everything is from everything else, how vast that sea is, and appreciate, them trying to figure out what the other side was doing and all this kind of things, when it would take days and days and days to make any progress in the Pacific, to get it from any point to any other point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I know, for example, my ship went from Long Beach, California, over to the Gulf of Tonkin, and it took 17 days to get there. And that was going at 20-plus knots all the way.
Full steam, yeah.
They had to plan days and days, sometimes weeks, in advance to get everybody in the station.
And the logistics were pure genius.
Yeah, the logistics in the Pacific were incredible. And, this was just as the American industrial capabilities started to produce a lot of things. So, we had airplanes that were coming online that were pretty good, as good as the Japanese airplanes. We didn't have very many of them. So Nimitz rolled the dice, and he sent his 3 carriers north and east of Midway, and the 4 Japanese carrier Kido Batai is what they were called, led the vanguard of the Japanese forces, and right behind Kido Batai was a huge surface task force. And basically what was going to happen was Yamamoto said, our planes from the 4 Japanese carriers will decimate Midway because he knew that there were some Navy, Marine Corps, and Army planes on Midway. So he's going to take them out. And then the huge task force, which included several thousand Japanese troops, were just going to come into Midway and take it over. So that was their plan. And he figured that sooner or later we would have to respond with our own carriers, and he thought maybe there were 1 or 2 U.S. carriers left, and at that point in time he would engage the U.S. carriers and wipe them out, and then there would be nothing between Midway Island and the west coast of the United States.
And Midway is a 2.4 square mile atoll, you tell me. Part of the Hawaiian archipelago, so really technically part of the islands that emerged from the Pacific, including Hawaii's islands. And
right.
It was a stopover point for Pan Am flying boats, considered
right.
to be midway between the West Coast and Asia. And we had a U.S. Navy presence and an airstrip there. Rick, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and you're going to continue on this critical battle of Midway when we return. Rick Bigelow, the Battle of Midway. We'll be back on the Bob Cordaro Show. Yeah, there's not many other words, so we could we could cut in there. This day, 1966, Tommy James and the Shondells. They debuted with their first hit single, Hanky Panky. Good song, good song. And, of course, on the history there, Dr. Jack Kevorkian. I always thought about this. You've devoted your life, and you've got to step back and say, oh, yeah, I'm easing suffering. You obsessively devoted your life and your skills as a physician to killing people. And that's a great thing. I'm not getting it. I thought he was an idiot, and I think I'm probably correct. Well, speaking of the opposite of that, our man Rick Bigelow is with us, and we're talking about the Battle of Midway. Continue, my man.
Well, things kind of started on June 3rd when the Japanese attacked the Aleutian Islands, and they took the islands of Attu and Kiska. And if you look at the map, Japan is really very close to the Aleutian Islands. So the idea for Yamamoto had there was that the attack on the Aleutians would be a surprise, and then Nimitz would send a big task force up there to oppose it, which would leave Midway unprotected. But Nimitz held firm in his belief what Rochefort had said, that Midway would be the main attack, and he sent some ships up to oppose the landings in Attu and Kiska in the Aleutians. But his main carrier task force, he positioned north and east of Midway. At the same time, the Japanese task force was approaching. So on June 4th, the Japanese launch a huge carrier airborne attack at Midway, and they do significant damage at the airstrip and the facilities at Midway. And the airplanes come back to the four carriers, and the carrier air wing convinces Nagumo, who was in charge of the Kido Butai, that they need one more big strike against the facilities at Midway, and that would render it unprotected, and so the surface task force should go in. So Nagumo orders all his planes to change from bombs that would be anti-ship bombs to anti-land bombs, and just as that happens, a bunch of planes from the American carriers come upon Nagumo's task force, come upon the four carriers. Within a space of about 6 minutes, we damaged 3 carriers, and they eventually all sink. So now we're down to 1 Japanese carrier, and we still have 3 American carriers. One of the American carriers, the Yorktown, is hit again, and it eventually has to drop out. So we've got 2 carriers to 1 carrier, and 1 Japanese carrier. And then there's another series of attacks that go against the 1 remaining Japanese carrier, and that is also hit and sunk. So we were lucky that we caught all the Japanese carriers with their planes and armaments all on deck, and just hitting them with a couple of bombs allowed them to basically be devastated. And the other thing I'll say is the Americans' damage control was much better than the Japanese damage control. As soon as fire started on the Japanese carriers, they were pretty much out of commission, and they were going to sink because all the armaments and the aviation gasoline and so on and so forth would ignite and just explode. We were able to keep the Yorktown floating and underway. In fact, it was heading back to Hawaii when it was hit again, and eventually it sank. So with all 4 Japanese carriers being out of commission, the Surface Task Force that had Yamamoto on it had to turn around and go back to Japan. And so the threat to Midway was over. And basically the threat to the west coast of the United States was over.
Amazing. Rick, we're going to take a break. We got to do our Veterans Tribute, and I want to talk about the losses and the aftermath of this incredible battle when we return. Rick Bigelow is our guest. Midway is our subject, the battle for Midway, and it's the Bob Cordaro Show. We'll return. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day, brought to you by John Basiliga and one of his amazing properties, a Terra 519. Well, the glass room is open. Walk-ins are welcome. The front section of the restaurant, they could just bring the windows wide open. You could be dining al fresco without being al fresco. It's an amazing restaurant, no matter what part of it you're in. A Terra 519. 519 Linden Street, Scranton. William Donovan. He died April 14th, 2025, survived by his wife of 63 years, the former Judy Frable. Mr. Donovan was born in Minooka, graduate of South Scranton Central Catholic High School, and a member of St. Teresa of Calcutta Parish at Nativity of Our Lord Church. A U.S. Navy veteran. When he returned to Scranton, he became a member of the Scranton Police Department, serving us in the motorcycle division. Something you don't think about. I love those motorcycles for the Scranton cops. I love them. And I know who Bill Donovan was, William Donovan. He escorted many dignitaries to and from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Airport. He initiated the Scranton Police Department scuba diving team. They pulled more than a few bodies out of the water. He was a member of the Fraternal Order of Police and the Blue Knights. He was known for his kindness, his wisdom, his strength. Man, that's what comes through in this obit. He was a real role model and a true pillar of strength. Surviving are his daughters. In addition to his wife, he was preceded in death tragically by a grandson, Eugene Donovan. William Donovan, U.S. Navy, Scranton Police. Joseph Schmiel. He died April 18th. He was just 73. He was from Bear Creek. Beloved husband, father, and grandfather. Born in Taylor. Can't say anything more about a guy than this. Joe lived a life filled with laughter, joy, and a spirit that brought happiness to all. Outdoorsman, avid fisherman, softball, bowling. 2 perfect games he bowled at Elko's in DuPont. Incredible. Coached youth leagues. Bachelor's degree from King's College. Employed at Tobyhanna Army Depot and became senior program analyst at Picatinny Arsenal in Dover, New Jersey. Survived by his loving wife of 40 years, Sharon, son, a grandson, dying of a rare form of cancer, but he maintained his jovial spirit. Joseph Schmiel. Our great veterans this hour, brought to you by John Basiliga and Atera 519. The Glass Room. It's open in more ways than one. Storm Tracker 16 forecast meteorologist Joe Snedeker. Today, sunny and humid. I like humidity. I know many of you don't, but I do. High 88. Tonight, partly cloudy, low is 64. Thursday, clouds and sun, humid with showers and thunderstorms late in the day. High 88. Friday, cooler with a mix of clouds and sun, chance of showers and thunderstorms. High near 80. Joe stopped right there, so that's as far as we can go. I don't have a peek at the weekend yet. By the way, somebody texted in, Bob, taking my wife to the Mary Stegmeyer Mansion tonight for its official opening for our anniversary. You're gonna love it. You're gonna. I'm telling you, you go into that house, that mansion. You're transported to a different place, a different age. That is a great anniversary gift. Good for you. All right, Rick Bigelow's with us. Battle of Midway. Huge losses, particularly by the Japanese, and a very important aftermath, Rick Bigelow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bob. The Japanese lost their 4 fleet carriers.
Wow.
And 1 cruiser and another cruiser was damaged, and 2 destroyers were damaged. They also lost 248 carrier aircraft, which was basically all the carrier aircraft from the invasion fleet.
Amazing.
So they had over 3,000 killed in action and 37 POWs, and these were primarily aviators who were forced to ditch because their planes had nowhere to land once the
Rick
4
Bigelow,
carriers were sunk.
in the pantheon of naval warfare, losing 3,000 in one action is staggering.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing here was the loss of the airplanes and the loss of the aviators, because the Japanese just couldn't crank out airplanes as fast as we could. And also the pipeline for training naval aviators in particular was very slow and very picky. So they just couldn't replace those aviators. And we had enough aviators that we would keep them on the line. They'd fly for 40 or 50 days or something like that, and then they would start to lose effectiveness because they would just get exhausted.
Yeah.
But the Japanese would never rotate new people in because they just didn't have very many new people. So losing that many carrier aircraft and pilots was a huge detriment to the Japanese force. As far as we're concerned, we had one fleet carrier sunk. That was the Georgetown and the Yorktown, and one destroyer was sunk, and we lost 150 aircraft. Most of the aircraft that were destroyed were obsolete aircraft that had been positioned at Midway on the island before the Japanese actually attacked. So we lost 307 killed in action. A lot of them were pilots and/or sailors who were killed when the Yorktown sank, and there were 3 POWs who were taken from that. And once again, I think that the key thing is not only did they lose their carriers, they lost a lot of their ace naval aviators. So that was a huge loss for them. The other thing is this showed definitely that World War II naval warfare belonged to the aircraft carrier. And while the battleships and the cruisers are still going to be important, you were going to win or lose with aircraft carriers in World War II. So it was a devastating loss for the Japanese, no doubt about it. The Kido Butai still was no longer a really effective fighting force. The 2 carriers that had to go back to Japan before the Battle of Midway, they would come out again, but they just were not as effective a fighting force when they had 6 carriers as when they were down to 2. This definitely was one of the turning points of the Pacific War, along with the Battle of Coral Sea and Guadalcanal and Buna in New Guinea, which all happened within a couple months. And of course, in August of 1942, just a couple months later, we landed at Guadalcanal. The Marines landed at Guadalcanal and started the slow move up the Solomons. Despite this huge loss, Japan was undeterred and moved forward with renewed operations to take Port Moresby. They tried 3 times and failed, and then they moved into Tulagi and Guadalcanal, and then they continued their operations in China and the Dutch East Indies. Without a doubt, we kind of figured this was the turning point. We made and launched something like 100 aircraft carriers in World War II. They weren't all the huge Essex-class carriers. A lot of them were light carriers, and they were escort carriers. But we just saturated the Pacific with aircraft carriers by the end of the war. And the Japanese, I think, were only able to produce 4 more carriers. So the handwriting was definitely on the wall as far as carrier capability.
Well, Rick,
and
we play that song, "The Battle is Over, but the War Goes On," and that was certainly the case after Midway, despite it being a decisive victory.
Exactly. It was going to take another 3 years, but the handwriting was on the wall, and the tide had turned in the Pacific. The Japanese weren't going to give up easily, and it was going to be brutal fighting all the way through to Okinawa.
Rick Bigelow, there was some local connection in this Battle of Midway, as there always is.
Yeah, there was a 25-year-old musician first class petty officer named Emil Kimmel from Eckley, Pennsylvania, which is a few miles outside of Freeland, and it's actually where the movie The Molly Maguires was made. He was part of the Navy band on the carrier USS Yorktown, and at that point in time, many carriers had their own bands with them. During the battle, he was assigned as a phone talker in a gun mount. After the battle was over, he was a stretcher bearer, which is not really very pleasant duty, but he was one of them. He was on the ship during the Battle of Coral Sea and raids at the Gilberts and Marianas Island. During one period, the ship was at sea for 101 straight days. So at the Battle of Midway, the Yorktown was hit several times, and it was starting to sink. Kimmel jumped into the water, swam for about 30 minutes, before he was eventually picked up by a whaleboat. The wounded were brought into the boat. Others hung on to ropes over the side. Men were eventually picked up by another ship and made it back to port. And at this point in time, his parents knew that he was on the Yorktown, and maybe a week after the battle, news stories started to come that a U.S. aircraft carrier had been sunk. So his parents had no idea what was going on. He lost everything when the ship sunk, including all his money and his trombone. He borrowed some money, sent flowers to his wife and his parents when he got back to the West Coast. He spent some time at his parents' home in Eckley and then headed off to shore duty in Florida. He retired from the Navy as a chief bandmaster, received a BS, MS degree from the University of Miami, and he became a teacher. That was a guy who was lucky to have been saved from the Battle of Midway.
Emil Kimmel. Wow.
Right.
There's another native from the Freeland area.
Yeah, another guy, Seaman George Sitch, survived the sinking of the destroyer USS Hammond, which was providing assistance to the Yorktown when it was sunk by a torpedo from a Japanese submarine. He returned to the continental United States and was assigned to a sub-chaser in the Atlantic, and he eventually received a medical discharge due to, I think he had probably ingested some water which affected his sinuses and so on and so forth, and he eventually got a medical discharge.
Amazing what these men saw. Wow.
Yeah, and what they suffered through. It's just incredible.
Rick Bigelow, thank you so much. Battle of Midway. We look forward to Friday talking about the D-Day invasion. But thank you for this discussion today. We appreciate it.
Glad to do it, Bob.
All right. Rick Bigelow, patent attorney extraordinaire, but he's our historian. We'll take a break and we'll be back. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Frank Sinatra. Murph says this date, 1966, he had the number one adult charts hit with that song, Stranger Than the Night. And Barack Obama, he extended the hand of peace to the Muslim community and around the world. And frankly, they accepted. But they didn't count on the Islamist savages who have perverted that religion and make that religion intended to be exclusionary and the only religion allowed. So, naivete by Barack Obama, very clearly, unfortunately. Our man Ray from Mountaintop. Ray, we only got a minute, but fire away, my man.
Robert, you've got a big decision to make, my friend. And I hope you make it in the right direction.
Tell me.
I am not ever going to listen to a radio station in northeastern Pennsylvania that puts ads on in Spanish. What in the hell is wrong with your station?
I didn't hear one.
This is America.
To be honest with you.
Pardon me?
They had one on this station? I didn't hear it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just heard two of them while I was listening
are you listening on the app?
Yes.
All right. There's the difference. They're not on the station. We have a Spanish station here, but no, we don't have. Me? Yeah, we don't. We have a Spanish station in our family of companies here, in the studios, right across the hall, actually. But no, Robert, that wouldn't have been our station's commercial itself. It's probably on the app. Yeah.
Robert, I can remember the 10:30 Mass at St. Mary's Annunciation Church being in Lithuanian, but the Lithuanians and the Poles and the Italians and the people that made this the greatest area of Pennsylvania understood English, and only English. Mm-hmm. God bless.
I can't disagree with you there, my friend. Don't get mad at us, though, now, Ray. You sound especially agitated.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the demise of our country.
I know.
You've got Barack Obama talking about the Muslims. Robert, what major religion in the world would ever countenance the unbelievable, hideous violence of those people? That is a violent religion. It tolerates extremists. It tolerates the most barbaric behavior. Look what those animals did.
It either tolerates or cowers. Either way, it's the same result.
And you know what? It shouldn't be in America. I'm sorry. It shouldn't. This is a Judeo-Christian country, period. That's what the Founding Fathers established. Our first war was with the Barbary pirates. Who were they?
And what's interesting, I played a clip from Bill Clinton. We've got to get out because it's news time, but Bill Clinton's pointing out, he said the Israelis were in the area called Palestine before the Muslim religion was even created.
Robert, the term that the Israelis ought to apply is the ones we had applied in World War II. Unconditional surrender. And that's when the war ends. Unconditional surrender. Anything else is nonsense.
And Iran is next.
Yes. God bless, Robert.
Thanks,
God
Ray.
bless you.
Ray.
Bye-bye.
Ray,
yes.
I usually sense a smile in your voice. I want that back.
I'll bring it back, Rob. You bring it out in me. Thanks. God bless you, Robert.
Right, man. Thank you so much. Time for the news. We'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. Gary Ruby on the other side. He's just taken up an incredible career in baseball. and he's just taken up a role with the. I don't even know what the area team's called. I was going to say Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons, but I know it's not that. We'll talk to Gary after that, after this news break. Bob Cordaro, WILK, will return. Great good morning, everyone. 11:08 a.m. here in the great Northeast. This beautiful Wednesday, June 4, 2025. Happy birthday, Bob Jr. Well, this is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values. And with the help of our man, John Basiliga, and guess what? The front room, the window room, the windows are open. The glass room. We will honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we lost this year, but celebrate this day. Like Joseph Schmiel, Bear Creek, Born Taylor, William Donovan, Scranton, Victor Karpowicz, Freeland, Richard Capwell, Dixon City, Frank Perfinsky, West Wyoming, Eugene George, Avoca, and Robert Huntington, Danville. So with history, our great founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising a sanctuary of sanity for the balance of this hour. When you see Trump derangement syndrome on somebody like David Brooks, I always thought he was mealy mouth. He used to be on PBS as the conservative spokesman in a they'd have sort of a point counterpoint every Friday night. And I always thought he was weak and not very certain of himself in terms of conservative beliefs. Well, he's gone. He's got TDS, and he's off the reservation. He's an idiot now. Well, mental illness can do that to you. And so we played him just to let you know that there are people who will put up with the complete destruction of the country by the left because they hate Donald Trump. And I'm like, well, who cares whether you like Donald Trump? What are the policies? And by the way, oh, well, poorly we treat Canada and this one. They're screwing us. Trump just calls it out bluntly. Maybe you might think crudely, and that's fine. But it's the truth. Ask a farmer, a dairy farmer from Wisconsin, how much the tariffs are into Canada to sell his cheese or his milk. Is that the act of a friend? Same thing with Europe. What are you even talking about? They let their hatred of Trump just make them into total ignoramuses. Scary stuff. In any event. Oh, quickly, because I've got to get to Gary Ruby. My man John Reba sent me something. This is a quick story, because we've just played Frank Sinatra. And on cue, he sent me this story. Frank Sinatra was dining at an exclusive restaurant and enjoying a quiet evening with friends when he noticed a young waiter moving between tables with an air of quiet exhaustion. Something about the kid's demeanor caught Sinatra's attention. He wasn't just tired, he looked weighed down by something heavier than a long shift. Sinatra had spent a lifetime reading people, and this kid had the look of someone carrying a burden. Sinatra subtly signaled the waiter over. The young man, nervous but professional, approached the table. Sinatra, without pretense, asked, "What's on your mind, kid?" The question caught the waiter off guard. He hesitated, but then he said he was struggling to pay for college. He'd been picking up extra shifts, but the cost of tuition was relentless, and he was falling behind. Dropping out seemed inevitable. Sinatra listened without interrupting, nodding slightly as the waiter spoke. Then, without any fanfare, he pulled out his checkbook, scrawled his signature, and handed the check over. The waiter stared at it, not immediately understanding. When he saw the amount, enough to cover the rest of his tuition, his breath caught in his throat. His hands trembled as he tried to hand it back. "Sir, I can't take this," he stammered to Sinatra. Frank Sinatra took a slow sip of his drink, then placed a reassuring hand on the young man's shoulder. "You can," he said. Just do something good for someone else when you get the chance. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it altered the course of the waiter's life. He would later recall that Sinatra didn't wait for thanks, didn't make a speech, didn't expect recognition. He just gave because he could. And for those who truly knew Sinatra, the story is hardly surprising. Behind the fame, the swagger, and the tough guy persona was a man who never forgot what it meant to struggle. And when he saw someone else facing a fight he could help with, he never hesitated. Thank you, John Reba. Great stuff. Great stuff. All right. So, a guy he's in some ways quietly and in other ways not so quietly, and he's come to attention of any baseball fan. He's just been part of the fabric of Northeast Pennsylvania baseball and baseball writ large across the United States for decades. And he just got appointed as the liaison between the county and the AAA baseball team here, and he is Gary Ruby. Gary, welcome to the Bob Cordaro Show. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Bob. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Hey, tell me about this new position.
Well, it's kind of unique. The position, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the communicator between the local franchise, the Rail Riders, the Yankees, and the Stadium Authority. What it does, it fills the gap for the information flow of one to the other, which, in the baseball business could be very difficult at times. So that's the role. I'm just going to try and keep everybody on the same page. I can't provide solutions for them for anything that come up, but I can make sure everybody's aware of what's going on with each other and make sure things get followed up on. So that's basically what it comes down to.
Well, the Ruby name is associated with this local team, but forever. But, you've been around baseball. Gary, tell us a little bit about your history in the game of baseball. It's really amazing.
Well, it's been a long road, Bob. Well, first of all, I'm the grandson of a major league umpire. My grandfather was Joe Paparella, who was a big league umpire for 28 years. So, basically we're all baseball brats out of this family. But after I was done playing, which ended kind of abruptly after I got traded a few times, but once I got into the coaching racket. Basically, the way I got my start.
But don't overlook the playing part of your career. I know you give it short shrift. You were one hell of a baseball player.
Well, I was okay. No, I was fortunate that again, I come out of a big sports family, and in those days everybody played three sports, and I was more recruited for football than baseball actually, and it kind of worked out. Yeah, that's
as Johnny Carson would say, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Neat.
That's when it came down to decision time for colleges. I ended up going to Arizona State, and on a both football baseball scholarship. And after the first semester, they worked out a deal where I went full ride on baseball. So that's what kind of started it. We won the national title that year, and then I got drafted the next year by Cleveland, and I played almost 5 years in their system, and then. After that, like most players, I got traded twice in the same year. The second time to Atlanta for a player to be named later, which, by the way, Atlanta owes Cleveland a player because they still haven't named a player.
Gary Ruby, what age were you at this time?
Oh, I was 25.
All right. So you're getting old for that at this point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I was at 25 when I got traded for the second time, and then it came down to the point where when you're expendable as a player. So I came back and went to school, finished my education, which I was very fortunate at Major League Baseball. I was one of the first people involved with the scholarship fund that MLB set up. So I had my education paid for as long as I wanted to go.
Neat.
So, and that worked out good because I got my bachelor's and I went back and got a master's out of it and didn't have to pay for it, which was kind of nice. So that little left-handed curveball, little sinker paid its dues for me. So that worked out good. And then I did some assistant coaching at the U just to fill in the time and try and stay with the game. And then I worked in the collegiate league, the Scranton Red Sox, there, and I had a famous catcher by the name of Joe Madden on my college team, and Joe was the one that called me back 2 years later and said, "Listen, I'm the new field coordinator with the Angels. Would you like to come back?" And I'm thinking, well, I'm already teaching school, and I'm pretty well established already as a teacher. But he said, why don't you just think about it? It's a Class A job. Maybe give it a whirl, and let's see what happens. And
Hazelton's Joe Madden. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. How about that? And he opened the door for me, and I got started in low A ball, and 31 years later, I'm still doing it all at every level. So.
Quite amazing.
That's how it worked. That's how it worked out.
Well, I guess you're one of the few people who could say baseball been very, very good to me.
Yes, it's been very, very, very good.
What do you see as the challenges in your role? Because you're right, there is a lot of miscommunication that could occur between the major league parent, the team itself, and the elected officials who have some involvement with it, quite obviously.
Right. Well, the biggest issue is, the communication part's difficult, especially in season. The major league club, the parent club, they're concerned about the major league club, period. That's the way this game works, okay? So the big thing is probably the most important part between the stadium authority, county, and the local franchise are facilities and upkeep and the care for the players, because the Yankees will only deal with top rate. They don't want anything second. Well, they don't want anything second rate. All right, so any kind of issues that for the facility or anything the Yankees are uncomfortable with the facility, that's the top priority, because when their players are happy, and these are the guys the next step to the big leagues. If things are done right, like the renovation that they did. That clubhouse is out of this world right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major league clubhouse. When they're happy, those players are happy and comfortable, you get more free agents. You get more people who want to sign and play here. And again, you're not afraid to send your rehab guys there because they're in good hands and good facilities. So that's probably the biggest thing, probably the most important thing.
You've been around so many minor league players and major league players, obviously. That you have a particular feel and understanding of what their needs are, what their desires are, and what makes them satisfied to be with a ball club.
Sure. Again, when you've done it a lot of ways, where I was fortunate, and this is, I'm really always serious about this. I was fortunate when I was younger to work at every level, from rookie to A ball to Double A to Triple A, then 17 years with the major league clubs. But and also I had a chance, to work in the Caribbean for a number of years in the Dominican and Venezuela, which to me was a huge asset, because the plight of the Caribbean players and the Latin players is so much different than the American players. Their needs are way different, and it's just to have that feel from being in those countries and working seasons in those countries. It really helps when their players get here. But the big thing is, especially at the AAA level, AAA's changed quite a bit. Okay, a lot of if you look at the roster of the local franchise, you'll see a lot of minor league free agents. All right, they go from club to club when their time is available. They get paid very well to protect the major league club. That's basically their job, is to play well. And when the needs are there up top, you got to have people to go fill. If you plan on winning championships at the major league level, you better have AAA people that can fill the gap for you. Otherwise, it's not going to work, because you're going to go through a lot of players. But that's where it's changed quite a bit. A lot of the prospects right now are in Double A. All right. As far as the guys on the rise, and they'll start mixing in the second half of the year. But AAA, that's your insurance for the major league club, and that's the biggest thing. They have that kind of feel that you have to realize those people that are working hard in AAA, their job is to protect that major league club and make sure that things are done right. So it's a little different.
Well, after Spangenberg gave up the job, and he did a great job for about 3 years, I believe, we were lucky to have you. And I hope you don't mind the literary license here. You're Gary Ruby. You're a true gem for area baseball.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I've heard that before somewhere.
I doubt it was original. It's the first time I heard it.
No.
But I doubt it was original.
But I appreciate it, Bob. It's this is home, and it's always been home. That's the one thing that we're proud of. That even through the 31 years and being all over the world, we've always kept our home here. We have a home up in Archibald, up by Valley View High School.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids were raised here. Our grandkids are raised here, and we've always kept it as home. And that was, I think, one of the smartest moves that we made, because it's a comfort level, and we know things are done right, and they're educated. Everybody's good because of it. So that's the important thing.
I worked with Jeremy Ruby when I was county commissioner. It's great to have a Ruby back in the saddle here in Northeast Pennsylvania, AAA baseball. Thank you, Gary Ruby.
No, anytime, Bob.
All right,
appreciate it.
Gary Ruby. He is the new liaison for the AAA team here and the Rail Riders. I forgot the name for a minute there, but it bodes well for the program. We'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We'll return. Remember that song? The Association, Murph says. They debuted this date, 1967, with their first hit single, Along Comes Mary. And my mother tells me, she says, nice Sinatra story, and reminding me, my Uncle Joe Mahalik, he couldn't get out to Colorado to see his wife. who was in a health facility out there. Sinatra paid for it. He was a Jersey guy. And somebody else texted in, didn't Sinatra pay for Joe Lewis's funeral? Yeah, good guy. Crazy, but a good guy. Somebody says Bob David Brooks was a phony. He was part of the deep state, swamp criminals in Washington, D.C. I listened, by the way, this morning. This rescission package goes up to the House and maybe the House and the Senate from the Trump administration. $9.5 billion. Now, isn't it crazy? And doesn't it tell you how out of control our government is that this is a tiny drop in the bucket? And what does Susan Collins of Maine say? This is the kind of fools you're dealing with. Republican in name only. Senator in name only. She's stupid. She's talking about some program for health care in the world. And like, you can't cut anything with these people. Like, you can't stop anything. We don't have the money, Susan Collins, because of people like you. We're driving the economy into the ditch. American exceptionalism, American greatness into the ditch because of people like you, Susan Collins. Unbelievable. It's a scary thing. Somebody asking if it was Uncle Joe or Uncle Al that Sinatra helped. My Uncle Joe. My Uncle Joe Mahalik. It's crazy. And I don't understand. At some point, there's got to be some level of discomfort that you can tolerate as an elected representative. At some point, you've got to lead and say no to your constituents. Period. We don't have the money. What am I missing here? Outrageous. Well, let us hear from our great sponsors because I want to get to our the last of our veterans tributes. We got 3 to pay tribute to this hour, and we will do so thanks to John Basiliga after these messages. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you loyally by our friend John Basiliga and his great companies. The glass room is open at Atera 519. Not a bad night to go and enjoy al fresco dining at the great Atera 519. Frank Perfinski. He was 99 when he died April 17th. He was from West Wyoming. He was at the Geno Murley Center when he passed. Born in Plains in 1925. Graduate of Plains Memorial High School, class of 43. He enlisted in the U.S. Navy and honorably served this country for 7.5 years during World War II and Korea. Honorably discharged 1952 with the rank of Petty Officer First Class Electrician. He was employed at Nelson Manufacturing in Wyoming and later at Westside Tech High School in the maintenance department. He also served as president of the union there. Very active in the American Legion Star Post, West Wyoming. Devoted Catholic. Member of Our Lady of Sorrows Church, now St. Monica's Parish, where he served as an altar server for funeral services for 21 years, church usher for 6 decades. President of the Holy Name Society. He also served the community judge of elections for over 5 decades. One of the organizers of the West Wyoming Volunteer Ambulance and a Red Cross volunteer, giving 92 pints of blood during his lifetime. President of the Wyoming West Wyoming Seniors for 14 years, and he was the Grand Marshal in the West Wyoming Parade in 2012. His beloved wife, the late Margaret Hollub Perfinski, passed away in 2002, and he tragically lost an infant daughter in 1955. He's survived by his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Frank Perfinski. Eugene George of Avoca. We lost him April 16th. He was born in Avoca. Devoted member of Queen of the Apostles Parish Church, Avoca. Graduated from Avoca High School. He served us in the United States Air Force. After that, he earned a bachelor's degree in accounting and finance from the University of Scranton. He worked as a licensed public accountant for Carter Footwear Wilkes-Barre, and then 20 years with Diamond Manufacturing in Wyoming, the great Flack brothers. He also provided tax preparation for a number of clients. He cherished his time with his beloved wife of 55 years, the former Barbara Skaz George, their sons and grandchildren. He's survived by Barbara, his wife, his sons. He's a proud grandfather of 5. He's also survived by his twin brother, Paul, in Clark Summit, and many other family members. Eugene George. Robert Huntington, Navy veteran, PPL retiree. He was only 71 when he passed Monday, April 7th. He was from Danville. Born in Bloomsburg, graduate of Danville Area High School, 71. Served his country with honor in the United States Navy, 74 to 78. He was a fire control technician in the Surface Missile Fire Control, Petty Officer 3rd Class. He served on the USS Chicago as well. Preceded in death by his devoted wife of 46 years, Julia Ann Kelly Huntington, back in 2022. They'd been married in 1975. Employed by PPL as a plant equipment operator, 30 years with them. Member of the Bloomsburg Southern Baptist Church. Avid golfer, approached life with a spirit of adventure. Beloved father and husband. He's survived by 1 daughter and other family. He was preceded in death by his twin brother, Raymond, Robert Huntington. Our great veterans this hour, thanks to John Basiliga and the Glass Room At a Terra 519. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Sneger. Today, sunny and humid, high 88. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 64. Thursday, clouds and sun, humid with showers and thunderstorms late in the day. Thursday, 88 the temperature. Friday, cooler with a mix of clouds and sun, a chance of showers and thunderstorms, high near 80. I love when they say cooler and it's going to be 80. That's pretty good stuff. Yeah, so that's our deal. Man, these veterans, they just did so much in their communities, and really fascinating. All right, so our guy Andrew Massimilian, he's checking in with us on the Second Amendment, and he's got a lot of things going on, a lot of things he's watching, and here he is with us. Andy, first of all, thank you for your patience with our timing here and everything. But we welcome you to the Bob Cordaro Show.
Hello, Bob.
All right, tell us what's happening.
Okay, so kind of a quick Second Amendment news summary. Lot going on. I'll hit some of the highlights. First of all, most of the gun owners are disappointed this week that the Supreme Court basically let the AR-15 ban and a magazine ban stay in place. It was before them. These were bans put in place, one dating back to 2013 in Maryland, the other one in the state of Rhode Island. They didn't say why, but Kavanaugh basically made an apology and said, we need to take this case maybe the next term or the term thereafter. It's sad because though Pennsylvania does not have any of these measures in place, all it takes is flipping the Senate to Democrats, and we're going to be stuck with New Jersey and New York's type laws, and we can't rely on this court to save us until they actually find those laws unconstitutional. Ron DeSantis had a great line when this came out. He said, this court's taking priorities by taking cases about illegal aliens, and they're putting Second Amendment rights, which is enumerated right, to the side. So good for Ron DeSantis.
Hey, well, he's right. I mean, I've never owned a gun. I can't now because I'm a felon. But at the same time, it's a freedom in the Constitution, and no one. It's treated like it's a second-class amendment to the Constitution. I don't understand it.
Well, it's something. I think the court is looking at what they consider to be politically sensitive cases, and these hardware ban cases they keep on punting on. So if they take the case and the current court is with its current composition and they follow the precedent, and there is precedent in this, we win.
Yeah.
Okay, but hey, you got John Roberts. Look what he did with Obamacare. There's a big question mark on
God knows what's on his mind.
Barrett.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, unfortunately, we got to make sure that we stick to the ballot box, and PA gun owners and those who even value the right understand one thing. If they take AR-15s off the table, they're going to come after all semi-automatics. And then they're going to come after that hunting rifle with a scope, because that they will say instead of an assault rifle, they'll say that's a tactical sniper rifle, highly accurate, designed for assassination. So the net is we got to keep involved. We got to make sure the Democrats do not take the Senate, and we got to, when Shapiro is up for election, try to put someone in who respects the Constitution. So that's the first
Andy
thing.
Massimilian, tell us. You are urging our new Attorney General, and I like him a lot, Dave Sunday, to restore reciprocity. Talk to us about that.
Okay, so very good point. So reciprocity on concealed carry licenses. So various states have a license to carry, including Pennsylvania. Basically carry a gun in public, concealed, provided you have a license, and several states recognize each other permits. And there's a whole bunch of states that recognize a Pennsylvania resident. You go to another state, you have to abide by their certain laws, but you can carry there without, fear of any legal repercussions. When Kathy Kane was AG and also when Shapiro was AG, they changed certain things where they reneged on certain agreements, Virginia being one state involved. So now Pennsylvania residents cannot carry in Virginia, and Virginia residents can't carry here, and there's other states involved that. Now, Dave Sunday, he campaigned on, hey, I'm going to respect Second Amendment rights, and I'm going to restore these states where Kathy Kane and Shapiro took them off the list. And he needs to be called and told, hey, follow up with that. Now, the other thing that's going on is a national reciprocity bill, okay? This is not an easy list. But 24 attorney generals from various states have signed on to it saying, we urge Congress to pass this. We're all for it. But guess what? Dave Sunday's not one of those signatures yet. So we need to get him on board. The number I have for the office there is 717-787-3391. Respectfully get a hold of his PR people and say, hey, we'd like you to, one, restore the reciprocity agreements with states that were folded when Shapiro and Kane were AG, and also to sign on to the national reciprocity bill as someone who urged them to do it.
Well, Andy Massimilian, thank you for calling in. Second Amendment update. We appreciate it, my friend.
Okay, very good, Bob. Have yourself a good afternoon. We'll talk to you soon enough.
All right. We'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK, will return. Tommy Rowe. Murph says number one hit in the UK with Dizzy. This date, 1970. June 4th, St. Teresa, Mother Teresa. Mary allowed God to take possession of her life by her purity, her humility, and her faithful love. She did it so beautifully. Let us seek to grow under the guidance of our Heavenly Mother in these three important interior attitudes of the soul that delight the heart of God and enable him to unite himself to us. Purity, humility, and faithful love. Mother Teresa for June 4th. Thank you, Mary Regina. As always, dear. Much appreciated in a moment we need. Somebody on Susan Collins, she needs to go. She has been and needs to go away. I agree. Awful, silly person. Really silly, Susan Collins, Senator of Maine. Another Jim from Bloomsburg says, Bob, unbelievable. I just heard an un-American language on U.S. radio station. I agree 1,000% with Ray. It's outrageous, and as much as I love WILK, this is tough to swallow. But that's not us. But it's not WILK. That's on the National Odyssey, and it's a woke company. There's not that much I can do about that. Don't blame the local, all right? Give us a break here. Ray concluded the segment with a smile. Somebody texted in to say, Bob, I want to say your program is so important. The Midway battle was so significant and inspired me to read about it after listening to your segment. A good learning moment. All the children in our schools should be aware and perhaps write an essay on this and other battles so they understand what we fought for and sacrificed. LTS. Keep up the great show. I look forward to hearing every morning. And by the way, Rick Bigelow, a veteran himself, not just a patent attorney, he speaks to all kinds of groups about these subjects. So that's why I love when we have him on. Another, Bob, the DOG is looking at nonviolent felons to give them the right to bear arms. My email, if you want to send me the article, is robert.cordaro, Cordaro, at Odyssey, AUDACY.com. Yeah. I think it makes imminent sense. As we start with Bruce Springsteen, we're disgusted with him, but not all his music. And this is, by the way, he's criticizing the USA in the song, just so you know. But June 4th, 1984, he released his 7th studio album, Born in the USA. Joe from Westside says, drove through Naog. Not a chance in hell there's going to be a pool this year, the way it looks. They'll be lucky to have it done by next summer. Maybe the Democrats have pools at home. I was by there with Chauncey yesterday. Yeah. And it's a splash pool. Unreal. Somebody else, if Sunday doesn't follow through on these reciprocity, it's 3 strikes against them regarding the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. Hey, Bob, how are you today? Somebody says chemtrails are definitely without 100% non-conspiratorial. So much evidence out there. We're following it. I'm taking it seriously. And they point out geoengineering.org to look it up. Hey, let's go. Final call. And, Donald, we got to be quick. My apologies.
Yeah,
but,
we got to continue this conversation, though. This is a dark money agenda. There's no way with these Democrats. These wide open borders, criminals, terrorists, drug dealers, rapists coming in, the gender operation on the kids, the inmates, the prisoners, the anti-Semites, protests. This is some kind of dark money agenda to have a whole party this way. I don't know where it's coming from. We got to find out.
It's got to be well, one of the sources is the Soros Foundation.
Somebody's giving them like $5 million or something to do this. There's a pro-illegal immigrant. You're supporting the criminals over ICE and all the law enforcement. This is crazy. We got to find out where the money's coming from.
Donald, Hakeem Jeffries wants to expose who they are. The ICE agents.
Yeah, exactly. They're being paid. It's all about money. They're being paid. Somebody's paying them, and it might be a foreign country. Who knows? You got to find out and get to the bottom of it. It's impossible for a whole party to think that's stupid and un-American, anti-American. So we got to continue the conversation.
As someone who supported that party forever, Do you think they could come back, Donald? I'm not seeing it.
No, they're done. They're done. There's nothing. Not when you're operating on children and doing it. They're getting to this point where it's evil. It's a 360 turn.
Yeah.
They're into like Satanism now. This party's shot. They got to scrap it like that sports commentator said and start fresh.
And start over. Yeah.
A whole new body. Right.
Donald, we couldn't play your theme songs today, but next call we will. All right.
Yeah, I see clearly now, right?
Thanks, brother. Donald from Pittston, we love him. Well, other people we love is the veterans we saluted today. Thanks to John Basiliga, Frank Perfinski, West Wyoming, Eugene George, Avoca, Joseph Schmiel, Bear Creek, formerly of Taylor, William Donovan, Scranton Cop, Victor Karpowicz, Freeland, Richard Capwell, Dixon City, Robert Huntington, Danville. Thank you to them. Thank you to their families for giving us a share in their greatness. Sue Henry Show next. Rob O'Donnell Show after that. And as for me, God willing, I'll be with you tomorrow morning at 9. But for now, we must gavel to a close this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, otherwise known as the Bob Cordaro Show. Adios, guys. Have a great afternoon.